All right, whenever you're ready.
Oh shit, wait, hold on.
Many of us know how difficult the issue of money can be in our lives. We need money for a car, money for gas, money for food, money for tuition, money for books, money to get to work to make money, and money to start a bank account where we can cash our checks. It seems like there's never enough of it, and in the case of a loan, you need money to be able to get money. While this backward standard can be confusing and infuriating for those of us living in Southern California, it's the monolith that stands between people in developing countries who need just a little more money to lift themselves out of the slums and provide for their families. In 1983, an American educated economist named Muhammad Yunus decided to focus on the biggest problem in his native Bangladesh, that those living below the poverty line had no means of boosting themselves out of poverty and into successful living. Yunus pioneered the concept of microfinance lending, which is to provide a small loan, usually between $30 and $200, to small business owners who would otherwise be unable to receive financing from a major bank and therefore be able to boost the local economy. Today I want to describe for you the benefits of microfinance lending. I'll be focusing specifically on the benefits to the borrower, the low impact to the lender, and the benefits on the economy. The most obvious benefits are those to the borrower, or the person receiving the loan. This is Rion. He's a 19-year-old fish vendor in the Philippines. He makes about 2,000 pesos, which translates to less than $50 a year, to support himself and his wife. Rion wants to buy more scales and insulated boxes for his business, but he needs nearly 5 times what he makes in a year to be able to supply those. He applied for a loan through Kiva.org, which is a nonprofit microfinance organization that relies on individual donations to fund loans. And 9 people, including myself, were able to donate $25 each to fund his $225 loan, which was repaid to each investor over the course of a year. The biggest demographic of microfinance borrowers is women in developing countries. These are places like Bangladesh, Thailand, Ecuador, and Sierra Leone, where women, especially uneducated women, are susceptible to trafficking and forced prostitution and who are marginalized by the government when it comes to justice and equality. These women typically learn a trade like basket weaving or jewelry making to help provide for themselves or their families and to keep them away from the scams that lead them to be victims of trafficking. These women need money to be able to buy supplies to make their wares, but interest rates are high for those with no credit, sometimes as high as 20% a month. Small loans can be the push that a small business owner needs to be able to make his or her wares available and profitable. I know what you're thinking, that's all well and good, but that sounds like a big risk for those lending the money. Many organizations such as Kiva offer a collective system where people donate small amounts of money, which are then repaid over the course of a year. In addition, in order to apply for those loans, these organizations require the borrower to be a part of an accountability group. These groups are typically 5 or 6 entrepreneurs in the same area with similar businesses. If one person in the group fails to repay their loan on time, the entire group becomes ineligible to borrow again. This is called social collateral, and it's a powerful incentive. Remember Muhammad Yunus? His 1983 experiment became Grameen Bank, which is now one of the biggest financial institutions in Bangladesh. A 1999 article in Forbes touts Yunus's success with Grameen Bank, noting that between 1983 and 1999, the bank had made $2.5 billion in profit, doing what no other major bank would do: lend just enough money to those living outside or living under the poverty line who cannot provide collateral. The payback rate for these loans is impressive by any standard. There's a 96% payback rate for loans made through Grameen Bank, and Kiva holds a 99% payback rate for their loans. In addition, in cases such as Kiva, investors can withdraw their money at any time, so there's no commitment beyond what you're comfortable with. From this point, viewing the effects of microfinance on the economy should be a no-brainer. This chart shows the countries of the world and the percentage of their population that are living on under $1 a day. As you can see, areas like Sierra Leone, Bangladesh, and the Philippines have percentages between 40 and 60% of their population living under $1 a day. According to an article entitled Equity and Access to Education in Bangladesh, the average cost of educating a child is about $55 a year. While this does not seem like much, the article also states that the average household income makes just over $200 a year. This causes horrific statistics in literacy rates. Just over half of Bangladesh's population can read and write. If a family is lent money from a microfinance organization, they can increase the profit from their businesses, therefore increasing the income for the family. This leads to greater accessibility in education, which will lead to more job opportunities and in turn push more money back into the economy. I'd like to close with a Hawaiian proverb found in the book Half the Sky, which explores empowering women in developing countries. A man goes onto the beach and sees that it is covered in starfish that have washed up in the tide. A little boy is walking along, picking them up and throwing them back in the water. "What are you doing, son?" the man asks. "You see how many starfish there are? You'll never make a difference." The boy paused thoughtfully and picked up another starfish and threw it into the ocean. "Sure made a difference to that one," he said. It's true that microfinance is not a cure-all. There are many risks involved in loaning money at low interest rates to high-risk clientele. Poverty may not be eradicated by microfinance. However, if organizations like Grameen Bank and Kiva can empower individuals instead of marginalizing them, then the world will change for one person at a time, and that's enough. Thank you.
And was Victoria here?
No.
No, of course not. Okay. Well, give me just a second and I'll have some comments for you. All right, Molly, I think everything in the introduction was really very good with one exception, and that's the delivery. All right. Well, you've got a good attention device, a common experience that draws us in, a kind of a story that gets us to that point, a terrific transition to the topic. We know what that's going to be. You've got an excellent statement of what the goal for the speech is, and the subject matter itself gives it some reason for it us to listen to. You have a really good preview. So, like I said, all of the structural stuff is pretty solid, but you're reading it to us. This is the start of the speech where you want to pull us in, and you ought to be engaging us, and it's a little bit tough. Now, I know that there's been some illness stuff that's been going on, so that kind of might subdue some of it, but you should at least be looking at us while you're doing that, and I think that that really hurts. We're going to work a lot more on this on the next thing, so all the technical stuff you're doing well, but the delivery thing is it's definitely going to be something that you need to work on. I like that you had some good definitions in the speech. The collective accountability thing, for instance, I thought was nicely explained. I thought you gave better supporting material as you went along. It seemed like on the first point there wasn't quite as much citation, but I heard a little bit more detail on the second and third points. I did think it was well organized at the beginning of the speech. I did, however, feel sometimes the transitions got a little bit lost in the presentation, and part of that is because of the reading again, because you're just going through it and you're not remembering this is a point at which I'm kind of shifting gears a little bit, and I ought to be indicating that to the audience in some way. And without your being conscious of it, it would be easy for us not to be conscious of it. Somebody who's listening carefully would probably be able to pick them out. But you know, remember we talked about that. People are lazy listeners. They aren't as active as they need to be, and you need to sometimes help them out a little bit. The visual materials are okay. I like the picture of the one guy that you talked about, and it sounded like you were an investor in this whole thing, and that's something that I think you needed more of in the speech. In other words, what was your personal experience in this? How did you get involved? What was the payback for you? Why did you consider getting involved in this kind of thing? What kind of satisfaction did you get from it, for instance? And then maybe some other stories of the similar kinds of things. I like the examples that you had on the other end, but I think you need some examples on this end too. I think we could have used maybe a little bit of technical visualization of the two institutions that you're talking about, the bank and the organization, and maybe a little bit more about how they work and where their money gets distributed, for instance. You had a nice one about all the people who are living on $1 a day, for instance, and I was wondering, okay, well, what countries do these kinds of institutions operate in? And are they regional, are they worldwide, are they just one particular place? How many of these organizations are there? You mentioned the two. I'm wondering if this has become a wider spread practice or if it's fairly narrow. If I wanted to be an investor, how would I get involved in doing this kind of thing? That's one of those things that just felt like there's something missing there, and that's an opportunity that I think you could have plugged in with a visual pretty easily. Other than a little bit of that, the main issue is just I think there's too much reading, and you need to talk to the audience. Okay, thank you.